Hello, we are the experts in rural culture and tourism behind the new Trøndelag initiative. We would like to show you our insight that led us to successfully adjusting the region's prospects for tourism and travel, as well as our solutions in detail.
In 2020, Trøndelag was an anonymous region in Norway, primarily being visited by travelers passing by on their journey towards more exotic destinations, and without the time to get to know or invest in the local communities. We experienced explosive tourism during peak seasons due to the public school holidays and very little activity during the rest of the year. The infrastructure in the region was heavily reliant on citizens owning their own car and not designed for rural areas. The cruise, conference and hotel industries was a staple of the economy, making up equally as much as the rest of northern Norway combined. Small businesses suffered under the big companies taking all the income. And being fed up with the unprofitable tourists and a passer-by mentality, Trøndelag decided to use the post-pandemic experience to build up a totally new tourism strategy, focusing on fewer tourists of the right quality, creating more value and more sustainable approach, with the goal of having implemented a solution by 2040.
So, to sum up, the 2020 challenges was that most tourists only traveled through Trøndelag, the lack of identity as a destination, lack of circular economy, centralization, wear and tear on tourist attractions. It was hard to move around, mass tourism due to the school holidays, and tourist attitude and emissions. The possibilities we saw for the future was that we could spread the tourist, make a holistic identity, preserve nature, create a solution for the transport, and make the rural areas more accessible, more circular collaboration, and move the tourism in a more sustainable way. To get there, we looked at the distinctive qualities of Trøndelag as their diverse region with fjords, mountains, valleys, forests, and skerries, their known hospitality and traditions for volunteerness, that they are the technological capital of Norway as well as the European gastronomy capital, and their rich culture and history.
So we consulted with various experts on the tourism industry of 2021. Trøndelag Reiseliv told us that it was important to get the right people at the right space and time, as well as that Trøndelag has no real identity. NHO Reiseliv told us that tourism industry receives higher incomes in forms of business travelers than recreational ones, as well as that there is a higher income from tourists during the summer than winter season. Innovation Norge told us that public transport focuses mainly on the residents, but how could I plan for both residents and travelers, as well as having a common goal is the way to succeed.
During our research, we decided to analyze how tourism affects our planet in 8 different stages. On a molecular level, oil is created over thousands of years only to be used for production of plastic and fuel for transportation. The transportation units in 2020 were heavily reliant on burning fossil fuel in order to create power for mechanical engines. Burning fossil fuel caused CO2 to be released into the atmosphere, causing the planet's average temperature to increase over a period of 70 years.
In order to better understand the driving forces behind mass tourism, we performed an iceberg analysis in order to uncover the root causes. It appeared that the driving forces behind the tourism industry came from a mindset that prioritized profit over local interests, as well as a fixed idea that traveling is a fundamental right. In order to combat these norms, we sought to challenge the mindset of travelers, raising questions about how much we actually need to travel. Could focusing on the quality of the experiences rather than the quantity contribute to a regenerative travel industry? And what if we could challenge traditional ideas of what matters to the consumer industry? Could there be more to travel than profit?
So, to sum up, this is how the situation looked like in the past. Poor utilization of land areas, mainly for transit and not for staying. The tourism supply chain was narrow-minded and poor. We had mass tourism, conference travelers, large international companies taking most of the share, leaving all the micro companies without a fair chance, and least the problems with centralization.
So today in 2040, tourism is passé. There's been a cultural shift, blurring the lines between traveler, being a visitor, local, and worker. Being mindful of your impact as a traveler has become the norm, where moving less often and staying longer in the preferred option. After the pandemics, remote working has found its place in society, making it viable to work from anywhere and anytime without being dependent on centralized services. The joint holiday is also being phased out, as remote workforce allows you for a more fluid system. Removing the joint holiday has contributed to descaling at explosive tourism in peak seasons. New structure also diminished the need for traditional work vacation, as flexible work schemes allow for natural and more frequent environment shifts when needed.
So this is how it looks today, with the tourists and stakeholders more spread out over the areas. And we use the post-pandemic experience to build up a new and more sustainable system. And it's spread out and more fluid, connected through the clusters. So the goal of the clusters is to contribute to long-term stays and unity. And in order to make all the stakeholders cooperate, they needed to work towards a common goal. So the cluster is the fundament for New Trøndelag and handles everything from restaurant reservations, different activities and experience, to establishing new lifestyle and becoming a part of the local community. The cluster is a system organizing the supply chain for production, infrastructure, local businesses, and social activities and experiences. Every aspect of the community is communicating and collaborating efficiently. Through digital surfaces as well as physical information hubs providing necessary services promoting health, daycare for children, education, exercise, and governmental agencies, citizens, and travelers have all needs covered.
The public transport system A to B, which is a part of the cluster, uses existing infrastructure such as floating underwater tunnels built in 2025, E39 and country roads. That shortens the travel time across fjords with 20 to 30 minutes by no longer relying on ferries and zigzagging roads. Travel from Kristiansand to Trondheim is now reduced by 7 hours. Tuts neither disturb the fjord ecosystem nor aesthetically pollutes the natural landscape with roads above water.
In 2040, personal cars has been phased out in favor of the more self-driving communal ones. People no longer move based on their routines. They mainly need quick trips from time to time, thus eliminating the need for privately owned cars. So compared to 20 years ago, it is now much easier to access remote places that couldn't be reached by trains or the old and now obsolete buses. So there's no need to rent a car either.
So over to the Trøndelag remote cabins. The cabin gives people a chance to stay longer, work remotely, get meaningful experiences and get closer connection with locals. It opens up for traceless living, a change in scenery, knowledge in local culture and gives you a chance to get in touch with nature. In the bigger picture, remote cabins improves health thanks to nature. It helps you to slow down, it creates less pressure on nature, and in addition, it changes the service industry by removing hotel chains.
So the Trøndelag remote cabins are completely circular and off-grid. It starts off with growing and harvesting the hemp and then building the cabins as volunteers together. Then you live in a cabin, getting a change of scenery, for example. And the cabins are self-sufficient with water filtration and powered by solar and algae energy. The foundation of the cabins are made out of hempcrete and leaves no trace of nature after tearing them down. And once they are torn down, they can break down the hempcrete and use it as a fertilizer to grow new and more hemp for new cabins.
The cluster provides courses in building Trøndelag remote cabins. The cabin building starts with compressing hemp in molds with algae as binding. Then long rectangular hemp blocks are placed on the ground as a foundation. The cabin will be built upon these. Thirdly, you put together the pre-cut skeleton for the cabins. The skeleton are made by experts and made out of the health beneficial and local wood sprouts. Fourth, you cover the walls with pressed hemp blocks and connect them by the joints. The hemp will act as both insulation and walls. Lastly, locally sourced furniture, hemp textiles and water system is added by local experts.
Trøndelag's new identity, workation. Nowadays, Trøndelag is known as the best spot for workation in Norway. One of the paramount challenges of working from home in a metropolitan area is fatigue caused by living and working in a static environment. Relocating to a workspace that facilitates for easy access to nature and a community promotes health benefits such as reduced risk of depression and lower blood pressure.
The cluster seeks to promote local businesses by facilitating cooperation and dialogue among the new and existing businesses, eliminating competition. Targeting local businesses promotes a regenerative economy where turnover and profit stays within the community. The system drew inspiration from the wine regions in Australia, which collaborates in order to strengthen each other and create a positive culture encouraging cooperation. The old cruise ship tourist in Trøndelag made up an income of approximately 70 million kroner during peak season, with an average consumption of 500 NOK for each visitor, with 140,000 guests. By eliminating cruise ship traffic, the region has to make up the lost income, and with the new Trøndelag cluster, the aim is to attract travelers who stay longer and spend locally. Replacing 140,000 short-term tourists with cabin residents proves to be a sustainable solution. An average cabin owner spends 40,000 NOK on local commodities over the course of a whole year, and if we're able to fill 2,000 cabins with travelers who spend locally, the region can make up the deficit as well as possibly earning income tax from remote working residents. Therefore, attracting the right kind of traveler can prove to be equally, if not more profitable, than relying on short-term visitors who infringe on local life in peak season. The quality over quantity approach is one of the fundamentals of the new Trøndelag initiative.
So, moving back to the overall model of the clusters, you can see that they have overlapping borders, and they are no longer bound by the municipal borders. The clusters seek to promote local businesses by facilitating cooperation and dialogue among new and existing businesses, eliminating competition. And they have a community function. The cluster and local communities are centered around maintaining and installing cabins, making them function as a social binding element as well as a practical necessity. Collaborating and volunteering is a driving force behind integrating new participants with an emphasis of using and working with your hands in an increasingly digital world. Trøndelag is the home of the Southern Sami. New Trøndelag also welcomes an alternative approach to time, a slow living lifestyle similar to the Sami mindset, where the activities dictate the structure of the day and not the other way around. Some citizens navigate the structure of the day using the sun as a measurement of passing the time. Social innovation. The restructured clusters seeks to rethink how we travel and work as a unit, raising questions such as how much do we need to travel? Do we need to travel far? Do we really need to travel that often? Seeking and educate visitors in the new mindset of a more sustainable way of exploring and working remotely.
As of right now, the community is focused on using an active verb describing their citizens to promote collaboration and participation as a driving social force. This means that words such as nomad, traveler, local, member, and pilgrim is often used about the residents. And in order to actually make all it viable to create year-round tourism, there's also some structural changes that needs to be done. And the first one was that there has to be at least 5 available placements at kindergartens at all times, as well as the annulment of public holidays. And as for the clusters, there are food borders as mentioned, and the cruise ships are now banned.
Experiences and activities. As you can see on this activity map, we have illustrated a selection of activities and services the clusters facilitates. And the everyday experiences and activities in Trøndelag consist of revolving around supporting the local community and creating value. Activities such as preparing shared meals, helping out at the hemp farm, and taking cabin building courses, as well as exploring nature, are among the most popular. Other activities include parties and gatherings at the Heimhall, being a local shepherd and enjoying nature. An important part of all activities is that they use storytelling as an integral tool in the services, making cultural and historical understanding a fundament for everyone who wish to participate, ensuring visitors being more than mere observers but mindful participants. Today, the word tourist is used as an insult towards someone who is not integrating.
Trøndelag has evolved their identity as foodie capital, now being one of the most innovative restaurant and food regions in Europe. Locally grown algae superfood is used to produce avocado-like vegetables called algicado, reducing the impact of transportation and water supply in the supply chain. Michelin restaurants such as Fangen and Credo has adapted a molecular biogastronomy approach to food, promoting fermented and locally sourced vegetables to replace meat as the main cuisine.
In 2022, Trøndelag finally identified hemp as a sustainable alternative to traditional materials and permitted hemp production after a growing awareness of material qualities, as well as medical and recreational use. Farmers in Fossen municipality has restored their tradition of hemp back to the 1800s, and it's now a natural growing environment.
So over to power supply. The region is powered by algae biopower, farms spread throughout Trøndelag. Cabins are also equipped with solar panels, making each cabin self-supported and independent of a power grid.
Then we will present a small family working remotely from Oslo that chooses to travel on a vacation to Trøndelag. It's pretty inevitable that you get tired from your surroundings when you are working from home. A car is booked ahead of time, they go to the car, travel away from the cramped city, across the mountains and down and through the underwater tunnels. They are around at the TRC cabins, checks it out, they work from home, school is done remotely. You can do your work outside, discuss at the hubs and create new ideas, help build new cabins and simply relax. And before you know it, after maybe 1 or 2 months, it's time to go home.
During the development of our project, we have worked closely with other research teams and stakeholders, which are also part of the new Trøndelag cluster, creating holistic and pragmatic solutions for the region.
So starting with the Norwegian Defense of Natural Resources, which helps the hemp farmers and cabin builder with wood supply and workforce. The Shepherd is an excellent experience choice for visitors with both guide and knowledge provided while walking through untouched nature. Heimhallen is the center for information and a great place to start your journey. The coastal food and fiber production provides algae for the food industry. Food made of algae has become synonymous with Trøndelag's food culture. The coastal food and fiber production provides algae for the food industry. Food made out of algae has become synonymous with Trøndelag's food culture, from molecular gastronomy to more casual meals, such as trendy algicado. Algae has come to stay. The algae production also provides for a booming industry that replaces the lost service jobs.
Building and staying at TRC cabins earns you green credits. The transformation of algae into energy is also one of the main energy providers in Trøndelag, central for many of its residents and industries. The regenerative land management acts as a right hand for New Trøndelag cluster by regenerating nature in the various municipalities and facilitates for voluntary work.
The New Trøndelag initiative seeks to degrow the conference industry, making hotels and conference centers free to use for other purposes, such as the Hub initiative, ensuring that job opportunities for local workforces are maintained throughout the conversion. Cabins are placed alongside hubs, facilitating for cooperation between workers while on vacation. So to sum up our project, the New Trøndelag initiative is an organized cluster promoting slow travel, local industry and meaningful interactions. And during our research and development of the project, we have came to question some of our own assumptions and mindsets regarding our habits of traveling. After the borders opened in the spring of 2022, we all decided on exploring local alternatives in our region, rather than seeking out faraway destinations. Thank you.